first IED I did out there, they were pretty much all RC IEDs, which,
Really?
there's benefits and drawbacks to like every type. Victim operated, like, well, I just don't become a victim, right?
Yeah.
Don't activate it. But an RC is like, I'm trusting in the box, right? I'm trusting in this box to protect me. And that's about all I got. And it was a site we had been to like several times because we were going to set up one of those little HESCO forts there, and it wasn't much of a hill. It wasn't the best place to put it. And we did end up setting it up. And this was on an op when we were like kind of wrecking, just doing a recce on the site to see if it was going to be good.
Yeah.
And later on we did set it up, and the Taliban like took it over, it like tore it down, planted IEDs on the yeah, we were like watching on drone footage just doing this. But we got there, and I had one of my big like responsibilities there was like training the CMRG. So that's the Civilian Mine Reduction Group. Just Afghanis that are basically like paid to do EOD stuff. Yeah. And they go through some sort of, at least most of them went through this like basic course to understand demo and like, just basic things. They would give them this backpack that had like a mine probe in it and some pull line, like just basic EOD tools. Yeah. And they would be up front kind of clearing the way basically, but we weren't in an area where you needed to sweep like all the time. Okay. And especially after a while, you knew like we're much more likely to get shot at than we are to find an IED. Yeah. So it's just kind of like knowing your AO, and it was cool working with them because you were like proud when they did something good, but you're also like super frustrated when it's like, they would go off like just the wrong direction. And it's like, dude, we went over this like how many times last night? Like you told me you understood it, and they're like, oh, sorry, boss. And they found this IED. It was like, there's a little graveyard and a little like brick enclosure. And this guy was like, there's an IED right here. And he had swept it. So I got up there with the PLT-5 and kind of uncovered it. And I was like, yeah, it was something wrapped in a trash bag, but it was like wrapped tightly enough that was like, it looks exactly like the shape of a cell phone. Mm-hmm. And we just put a charge on that because what we thought it was, like, we'll disrupt it first. And then it had a wire that we found later once we went back down to investigate. And the CMRG did some of this, like the investigation, looking for the wire. And it went down into the ground and it was super thin and they couldn't find it. So I ended up going back down there to see, like, okay, what was it exactly? Right. And is there still a threat? Did we actually disrupt it? And it was a 155 or no, 105. And it was buried like really deep. But really? Yeah, it was kind of strange. It was like a few feet down in the ground, but I just kept following this wire down to it. Yeah. And that was, being an EOD guy, like it's your first IED, there's definitely like thoughts that are going through your mind. Yeah. Like, oh, wow, this is a real IED, like this is my first time. And you're kind of excited. At the same time, you're like, I could die. Yeah. Like I could die right now. and then you reach this point where you're like, I can't think about that. I got to do this, right. And if you're not able to do that, I guess probably you either want to last very long or you wouldn't be able to do the job very long if you weren't able to like push those thoughts out of your mind. Yeah. Luckily I was able to.
I think that's actually a lot of most EOD guys, I think, are really good at like shutting everything off but what they're doing. And then as soon as that's over, bringing everything back.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do have to keep that like awareness of, especially in training, one of the hard things to simulate is like you're with a platoon or with security or all these other people. Like, where are they? Because you don't have them. Yeah. So they're all imaginary. And one of the things that's easier in real life is like, what the mission is, what is happening in that moment, where everyone is basically. So you don't have to imagine any of these things. It's just like blatantly obvious. So that kind of makes it easier in some ways. blew it up, and Chris was proud. This is your
Yeah.
first ID, right? I'm like, yeah.